Welcome back to the Kudlow Report. Even the White House now admits that the so-called economic recovery is still subpar. But they don't seem to understand the negatives associated with Obamacare. Here now is Democratic strategist Steve McMahon, and we bring back economist John Makin of the American Enterprise Institute. John, by the way, is a former consultant to the U.S. Treasury, the CBO, and the IMF. Steve McMahon, welcome. You know, Steve, a lot's been printed this week about the CBO estimate. 2.5 million jobs lost, the so-called job lock. There's disincentives for workers, the so-called poverty trap. Businesses are not going to hire because they don't want to pay for all this. I don't see this economy really bursting out until we make some major changes in Obamacare, as in repeal it.
Well, Larry, that's not going to happen. I think there's no question, and the president's even said that if there are problems with Obamacare and the Republicans have constructive solutions, he's open to discussing them. I'm actually glad John's here tonight because he was at CBO, and I'm sure he read the whole report. And the whole report actually said a number of things that that weren't quite so damning, which you didn't mention, and haven't really been covered in the press. And we can go into some of those, but they include the fact that the CBO says that over the next 10 years, on balance, the ACA is going to increase the demand for goods and services, which is going to create jobs. The insurance premiums on the exchange are 15% lower than what people were projecting, which the CBO also noted. So there were a lot of things like this jobs report. There were a lot of things underneath the headline that were much more encouraging. And remember, the ACA wasn't, the Affordable Care Act wasn't a jobs bill. It was designed to get health insurance for people who were losing it.
Yeah, but by the way, Nancy Pelosi and some others sold it as a jobs bill. I don't want to let that go by. That was one of the sales, and the president himself wound up using that kind of rhetoric. I want to go to John Makin. Let me go to John Makin on this, because John, look, if you have a job and you work hard and climb the ladder of opportunity, you're either going to lose your subsidy or you're going to pay higher tax rates. So that is a disincentive to work. That's a disincentive to work hard. And I think that hurts the growth of the overall economy.
Yeah, well, look, I think there are three things the economy is struggling with. One of them is the uncertainty that surrounds Obamacare and its implementation, both for employers and employees. I think that's still there. This hasn't been a smooth rollout at all. People don't know really what they're going to be spending for health care, and we don't have full information on where it's going, but a lot of people that I know are finding that they have to spend more. Secondly, of course, the regulation of financial markets, the Dodd-Frank legislation is still a big problem because banks have gone out of the lending business. And then finally, we have a lot of disincentives to grow in the world at large. Emerging markets are struggling and so on. So I'm seeing 2% growth. I'm seeing Obamacare not helping. And one of the reasons, a lot of people said at the start of the year, hey, when we start this year, there's no more fiscal drag, there's no more impact of the tax increases and spending cuts that we saw last year. That may be true to some extent, but we still have drags coming from all these regulations.
Well, I think Obamacare is a big drag. I think a lot of these
that's
businesses,
what I'm saying.
You know, not only because it's disincentive to work, which is really tragic in my opinion, but a lot of these businesses will not make long-term investment because they're just not sure what the rules of the game is going to be and what the penalty is going to be. But Steve McMahon, I want to come back to you on this. Two places where you and I might agree. Number one, in the President's State of the Union address, he had a paragraph that called for free trade. Unfortunately, Democratic leader Harry Reid ended all that in the Senate. I believe free trade would really help grow the economy. And second, I don't know specifics what Obama wants, but sensible immigration reform, like bringing Brainiac visas to 2 or 3 times the size, letting foreign students remain here, would also be pro-growth. Now, the Wall Street Journal editorial page chided Republicans for not pushing this. I want to chide everybody. Your guy Reid doesn't want to do this. Nobody wants to do this. This is the stuff of which better growth comes from.
That's right. I mean, I agree with you, Larry, and I think the president would agree with you. And those are two things that can contribute to economic growth. But you said something a moment ago that I want to actually agree with as well, which is if there's a disincentive to work, that's tragic. And I think that's tragic, but only if it's true. And so far, there hasn't been, I don't think that the people who you're talking about, the folks who would be included and covered under the ACA, have any disincentive to work because, frankly, they need to work to make ends meet.
But that was what the
CBO
CBO report said. It was very clear. They acknowledged supply-side disincentives with respect to labor.
The CBO report also talked about declining participation in the workforce generally, which has been going on for some time as a result of baby boomers leaving the workforce. So the question becomes, who is it that's declining in participation?
Well, I'm not leaving.
Is it the lower wage? Well, is it the lower wage?
I'm a baby boomer. I'm not leaving. I'm right here.
We all want you to stay around forever, Larry, because we have so much fun.
I'm not leaving.
John Macon's got to be a baby boomer. Steve McMahon, you may not be a baby boomer. You may be younger.
I am.
You are. We're all here kicking, working away. But
let me just
add one last one, John. Give it that.
Okay, the trade issue is very important. Trade, let's face it, and I think we all agree on this, but I just want to emphasize, trade is a presidential issue. The president has to offer strong leadership.
Right.
The president has to slap down Harry Reid and say, you know, we're going to move ahead here, and I don't see that happening. There's always resistance. The president has to be aggressive, and I think most presidents do, and I hope President Obama will simply abandon Reid on this.
He's got to. There's a global trade. We got an Atlantic Trade Initiative. We got a Pacific Trade Initiative. And if that stuff rolls forward, you know, that is so pro-growth. That is so pro-investment. That is so pro-businesses, large and small. It's so pro-job creation. Because whatever you do on trade, on exports and the like, you're going to increase the home office. So, Steve McMahon, please tell the president when you see him tonight for drinks or whenever you see him that Kudlow agrees with him.
It was in the State of the Union, Larry. He put it there for a reason.
He
put it there for a reason.
I know, but he's got to knock down Harry Reid. Anyway, I got to get out of here. The producer's screaming at me. Steve McMahon, thank you. John Macon, great.